Welcome back. Now, singer Jessie J recently opened up about her shocking and overwhelming sense of sadness since suffering a miscarriage, saying it's the loneliest feeling in the world. Here in Ireland, between 20 and 25% of all pregnancies end in miscarriage. With me to discuss this further is Senator Mary Seery Kearney, who has suffered pregnancy loss, and fertility therapist and coach Helena Tubridy. Thank you both so much for joining me this morning. If we can start with you, Senator, I mean, what you've been through is like when I was reading about it, the mind boggles, because you've been through IVF 13 times and you've suffered 5 miscarriages.
I have. And I think maybe the most important thing right now for people like Jessie J and others who are going through miscarriage is not to diminish the loss, because it doesn't matter how long you were pregnant for. You have lived a lifetime of hopes and dreams with that child and that baby you've imagined. You know, I used to imagine the little hand in my hand going to the playground. Regardless, and in a way, early pregnancy loss is particularly difficult because you don't have a funeral, you don't have anything to bury you. So I think there's a tendency to diminish your experience.
Yeah, because over 24 weeks you can get kind of a birth cert. But before that,
Yes.
here, and even women don't sort of talk, we're told not to talk about it before 3 months, Helena. Is there an issue in Ireland about this being sort of a silent shame, and around the world, about this being a silent thing and women just get on with it?
It certainly is, and there's so much self-blame, as you were saying. Yeah. It really is, you know, the sense of what did I do wrong, what could I have done more of? It's internalised, and we do have this 3-month thing that we're not allowed to speak about it till then, until a pregnancy is established. So I think, you know, inclusive in miscarriage is the loss with ectopic pregnancy, with recurrent miscarriage, and of course stillbirth and neonatal loss. So the amount of propensity for loss, for grief, and not to minimise it, and to realise that there is another partner. Yeah. Often the men are sidelined. Absolutely. They may grieve in different time frames, I find, in my practice. Your partner may not be the best support at that time.
Why would that be?
Because, you know, a woman, as you say, in her body, you know, carrying a baby, feeling the changes, having the scans. You might have had a lot of IVF beforehand. You might have had failed cycles. You are hoping and waiting and wondering. And the focus is very much on women's bodies. Men are the Cinderellas of fertility. Okay. And, you know, the sense of wondering, is this our last chance? Will we be able to go again? Yeah. You know, IVF is incredibly expensive. There's about a 25% chance of success per cycle. There's no government funding. We've been waiting over 6 years for any legislation to give any funding for people. Yep. They're going to credit unions and in-laws and saving, reaching middle age without money, without the savings you might expect. So the burdens are massive. And I think, you know, to realise that in groups, women, you know, have children, and children can be currency. Look at my children. Oh, you've no children, you know, or all of these kind of things. And we can say such unhelpful things.
Oh, yes.
You're young, you can go again, and sure, you were only early days. Which
or
is
the horrible piece, that piece of what's for you won't pass you, or it wasn't meant to be, and you want to stand there and scream. Invariably, it's from people who have children, and you think, you have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I have physically held this baby in my body. Yeah. I may not have physically held him or her in my hands, but I have lived that life and that hope, because Santa brings you a baby doll when you're a little girl, so you have a projection of what you're going to be, what you're going to be like as a parent, how that's going to be when you grow up. And here you have a positive pregnancy test, and from that moment you are a mother. And I think honouring that loss of that you're a mother from the moment of the pregnancy test is really important.
And Mary, for you, because, you know, 5 miscarriages, it's huge. It must have been a sense of loss and devastation. And how was it with the people around you? Did you talk to people? Did you let them know? How did you find it best to deal with it?
We were always very open, and I'm a wicked stepmother, or not so wicked as I would like to think. So we had fantastic support in my stepchildren, in my parents. I'm an only child, so I had a certain expectation or hope for my parents, and that this was going to be their grandchild as well. And so you see, on one hand, I have incredible support and love and I had a wider family. I have a cousin, big sister, you know, and a really good close friends. So people were very much with you and with me throughout it, and very supportive. And I have the most amazing husband. So we were in everything together.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it was my body that was letting us down. And I have a love-hate relationship then with your body. You think of polycystic ovaries, how do you overcome that? You know,
it's
and
letting
all
you
that.
down.
Yes, yeah. Now I've come past that now, but there is that residue of resentment because you have an expectation that everything is going to be fine. So if it isn't, whose fault should I have?
God.
If I had dieted more, if I had managed, and there's some things you just can't help. It doesn't matter how perfect you are in the preparation for it. It's just not going to happen. And eventually we went to surrogacy for our baby.
Absolutely, and we'll get to gorgeous Scarlett in a minute. But hearing Mary speak like that, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking to hear you say those words. And when you're talking about 20 to 25% of all pregnancies ending in miscarriage, Helena, that's obviously happening with an awful lot of people. But how can they get to a place where they feel ready to perhaps go again, or to deal with it in an open way?
Indeed, that is so important, because I think, again, you know, miscarriage, you need to have 3 miscarriages before you can actually get proper investigations and treatment. And in fact, the male factor is totally ignored.
Yes.
Men are the Cinderellas of fertility treatment. So, you know, the sperm is 50% of the fertility equation, apart from the mechanics, apart from underlying conditions. So really, to recover from miscarriage, to process it, to weave it into the family narrative that this is our story. It does behove people to take a little time to recover, to grieve, and to get some really good medical oversight, to actually do a forensic and see what can be shifted, what can be changed. I come in with the mind-body area, the emotional aspects, because miscarriage, any pregnancy loss at any stage, is traumatic.
Yeah.
It is, honestly...
Like at any stage, we're talking pre, it just
we're
seems,
talking,
you know, before 3 months, all women, you'll be fine. It's not.
A chemical pregnancy, a missed miscarriage, recurrent miscarriage, everything, the weight of it. If you've had a miscarriage, you might have had surgery, or you've had medication, you might have had a major hemorrhage. You're on your own. You know, the scans now, having to go, that has been extra traumatic. Walking across a car park, telling your other half there is no heartbeat. And he's asking questions, he's wondering. This poor woman is shell-shocked. They are so bereft, so alone. So the recovery period, friends and family may be wonderful, partners may be superb, but there can be a disconnect. So a little professional attention where you're heard, where you're understood, where your grief is given space, where you can process and integrate it, and then prepare for pregnancy.
But Helena, where it's also practical, because Helena, there is a bill now proposing compassionate leave for people who have gone through something like a miscarriage, which honestly seems like a no-brainer. It's, you know, it's not like a toothache.
Yes.
You know, this is traumatic.
Absolutely.
So Lidl are giving about 2 days, which is very good. It's a great start. But really and truly, most people will tell me in my practice that they wish they had taken longer off. There's a tendency to rush back, to be busy, and it's like, get on, this body has let me down. So in fact, to take the time to heal physically, and there's quite a lot of healing physically, and emotionally, and realise that grief comes in waves, it's not linear. Everybody is different, every couple is different.
Absolutely, and it's not something easy like that. Now, you did have your gorgeous daughter, Scarlett. She's a pure doe through surrogacy in India, and you know, you're so lucky to have been able to do that, and I know you feel privileged about that, but the smile on your, like, every single day, I know you appreciate her so much. And that people are so happy for you.
Yes.
You've got your baby.
Yeah, and we have a family who adore her, and I pinch she catches my breath at some point every day that I see the photographs going up there, and she's a dream and a joy, and I'm very privileged and very fortunate that she was born and is in my life. But it was traumatic. We still, on the 29th of December every year, which was one of the dates on which I received the news that there was no more heartbeat, we lay a wreath on my grandparents' grave. We memorialise our loss, and we don't dismiss it. We have a tree and a plaque in the back garden because it's important. And yes, Scarlett is fantastic and we're totally invested and love every moment with her. but also to recognise that portion of our lives, of my husband and I, of our lives where we stood together, and he is fantastic, and he enveloped me with love and care, and we came through it together, and there was nothing that we could ever talk about. But we remember, we remember, and I think that's important. And I think that legislation coming through, and the government in principle is agreeing it, and we're working through the finer details, but even having a statutory recognition in itself starts bringing miscarriage out into the mainstream. And we've got to normalise the conversation, because if we don't, what happened, people in my life, friends, we lived in a little estate, they stopped inviting me to birthday parties because they didn't want to bring that trauma on me. So you didn't get the moment in the kitchen with a glass of wine with all the women and having a chat. You missed out on that also, and you become further marginalised. Instead of being right in the mainstream, miscarriage is normal, it is horrible, and it is traumatic.
And so many people are going through
Absolutely.
it. Absolutely. It'd be amazing to have that support there. It's been lovely, and thank you both so much for taking the time. Helena Tubridy and Senator Mary Seery Kearney, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and lovely. Thank you for opening up like that. It's amazing. We're going to take a very quick break now, but we'll be back with more Ireland AM after these.